Well, I mean, I think obviously last year we probably still had a bit of an overhang from COVID. I think there was a lot of activity going on in the market. And I think this year it's probably stabilised a little bit more. So I think that we can see in terms of the data that probably turnover down by about 3 to 5%, prices down by about 5%. But in recent times, stock levels on the system up about 12%. Look, I think London is one of the centrepieces of the world economies. I think we do a lot of self-flagellation in the UK, and in particular in London. We look at all the negatives, but London is one of the main cities of the world, both in the financial sector and for many, many reasons. And I don't think that's going to change. It's got its problems, there's no question of that. So I personally think it's not going to be particularly exciting. I think that we will continue to have quite a balanced market. I think that probably you might actually see that prices will come off at the end of the year slightly. I mean, we're talking about maybe 1 or 2%. Equally, it could go up by 1 or 2%, but I think probably come the end of the year, we'll probably be looking at about 1 to 2% down. And I think considering everything that's going on, I don't think that's too bad. So I think that's, if I had to put a prediction, that's probably what I'd be looking at. As it happens, elections don't have that much of an effect on prices. So people might hold back a little bit from putting their properties on the market just in the run-up. So you might have a little bit less property available just before an election, a little bit more post an election. Again, prices, it's a little bit less before, a little bit more after. So I think that it will just be, I think it will be the same. I think the only thing that probably could have a little bit of an outcome, I think we can all see probably what the outcome of the election is going to be. Labour are talking about putting an extra 1% on international buyers. And central London in particular is very, very reliant on the international buyer. So we'll have to see if that has an effect long term in terms of the market. Hopefully an extra 1% won't have too much of an effect, but it could have a little bit of an effect. Well, I mean, the rental market has been it's been pretty amazing what's happened since COVID. I think that it's been a very, very challenging time for tenants. I think it's been a great time for landlords. Let's not forget that in the run-up to COVID, there hadn't been that much growth in the rental market. So whilst the growth that we've seen since the ending of sort of COVID restrictions has been runaway, if you actually were to take that over the last 6 or 7 years, it's not particularly outrageous. It is high since COVID, because you're talking about growth of 25 to 30% in prime central London, and that is obviously high. But if you were to take that back to 2017, it's not as outrageous. We're seeing obviously the market has settled down a little bit. We're not having that sort of growth. The growth is probably more in line with inflation now. Stock levels are still very, very low, but I think that they're normalising a little bit, and I think we're seeing more the north of the £1,000 a week market. We're seeing that market a little bit more stock coming on, and look, I think the market needs a little bit more stock, and I think the tenants need a little bit more choice. So it's moving in the right direction, but there's still a long way to go to get back to where we were pre-COVID. Anecdotally, there are people whose sort of instant reaction to it is, we're not going to stay. But I can tell you that the data doesn't show that there's some huge exodus in terms of people selling up and saying they want to leave. But equally, I don't think there's anything in the data to suggest that people aren't coming to London. And I think it's sort of demonstrated in some very, very large transactions which have taken place recently. And I think that if it was that bad, I just think that people wouldn't be here. But there are some fantastic buyers. I think there are lots of buyers in the market, at the top end of the market, who want to buy. Yes, I think some deals have fallen out of bed as a result of the non-dom changes. But I think that luckily there are plenty of buyers that are replacing them. So there's no shortage of buyers. Is it affecting some people? Most definitely. But I think that the market is steady as she goes.